Revenge films.
My name is Melissa Smith. I live together with my husband, Richard Smith. Ever since I was a little girl, I had always dreamed about becoming a chef. After years of studying and apprenticeships, I was finally able to open the Italian restaurant of my dreams. I didn't grow up in a wealthy family at all. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Ever since I was a student, I worked really hard at multiple part-time jobs, and little by little, I was able to save money. With that hard-earned money, I went to Italy and I did an apprenticeship there. That's why I was able to open an authentic Italian restaurant of my dreams. Then one day, I received an invitation to my high school reunion. The last time we had a high school reunion, it was about 2 years after we had all graduated from high school. That meant that it was 10 years since we had all gotten together. My husband said to me,
"You haven't seen them in so long, you should go ahead."
He kindly gave me the okay, so I decided to attend. However, there was just one thing that was bothering me about the high school reunion, and that was the presence of my high school classmate, Sarah. Sarah was the daughter of a CEO, and she was raised in a very wealthy family. Because of that, back in high school, she used to make fun of me all the time and would call me a peasant. During the lunch breaks, I would be sitting at my desk eating the lunchbox that my mom made for me. Sarah would come over next to me and say out loud for everybody to hear, "Yuck, everything in there is brown. It looks like food for the family pet." She would say things like that and often make me the brunt of her jokes. Every single time she would do that, it would really upset me, but I couldn't find it in myself to say anything back to her. That's because anytime Sarah was upset about anything at all, she would go straight to her dad about it, and then her dad would barge into the school and talk to the teachers and the principal. Everybody was tired of dealing with them, but because he was a CEO, he had power. And if I say something back to Sarah and her dad comes to the school again, it would cause trouble to my parents as well. I really wanted to avoid bothering my parents, so all I could do was bottle in the anger and tolerate it. I really didn't want to see Sarah, but I did want to see all my other friends. And I was looking forward to the high school reunion. And plus, now that we had all become adults, I'm sure that Sarah had also matured, and surely that spoiled, bratty personality of hers has changed. And then, on the day of the high school reunion, when I arrived at the venue, there were so many nostalgic faces lined up, and it was really nice to see everybody. As I was catching up with my good friends and having a great time, that was when Sarah arrived and walked over to us. At that moment, I could tell that everybody changed the expression on their faces, probably because back in high school, nobody liked her, and everybody felt the same way that I did. But as for her, she didn't seem to take notice that the entire atmosphere of the room had to change, and immediately yelled out to everybody, "Long time no see, y'all!" in a really excited voice. I was hopeful that her personality had changed for the better, at least a little bit, but immediately after being reunited with her, I was going to find out the hard way that she hadn't changed at all. As soon as she arrived, she started asking everybody what they were up to these days, and then as soon as she saw me, Sarah said, "Oh my gosh, look, if it isn't the peasant! I just noticed now that you're also here. So what are you doing for work? Are you poor as usual? I bet you're not married yet, are you?" She said. I didn't even want to have a conversation with her, but I felt like I should at least answer her questions. When I told her that I got married 5 years ago and then I recently opened my Italian restaurant, Sarah immediately changed her face and looked irritated. "Huh? Well, whatever. I'm sure the person that you married is also a peasant anyway, right? And you say you have your own Italian restaurant, but it's probably just a pathetic restaurant, isn't it?" Sarah was so nonchalant, saying such rude things that one of my friends jumped in and retaliated to defend me. "No, you're wrong. Melissa's husband is an employee at a major company, and the restaurant is a super authentic and fancy restaurant. It's amazing." As she said that, my friend smiled proudly, but Sarah's response was quick. "As if that would ever be the case. Stop lying. There's no way she would have that." And she refused to believe it. But then, when my friend pulled up my restaurant website and showed it to Sarah, she looked shocked as she zoomed in closer, and then she said, "Wow, not bad for a peasant. Well, you know what? I'm actually going to have my engagement party next week, so I'll do you a favor and I'll rent out the entire restaurant." Of course, this was Sarah, and I had no desire to get on board with this, but because I shouldn't be discriminating against customers, I reluctantly ended up accepting her reservation. 30 people from 6 p.m., please, and I want the most expensive tasting menu you have." That's what she said to me, so I had her fill out the reservation request on the spot. From there, in front of everybody, Sarah continued to brag about herself and only talk about herself. Guess what? My fiancé is the manager of a super popular hair salon. It's like going viral right now. It's like super rich. So when we get married, I'm planning to become a full-time housewife. I'm so glad that I waited until this age to not get married and wait for a partner that was actually worthy of me. When she finished talking about her recent life, everybody did a fake laugh and went back to their own conversations. For the after party, I was able to enjoy it with just friends that I was close to, and I was having the best time seeing them for the first time in a while. When I got home that day and I told my husband that we got a reservation for 30 people in a private buyout of the restaurant.
Wow, that's amazing, Melissa. Well done.
And he was really happy for me. So I placed an order for all the necessary ingredients for the tasting menu, and I was fully prepared as I approached the day of the reservation. Because it was a party of 30 people sitting down at once, we were super busy that day from early in the morning. We had all hands on deck with the staff preparing, and thanks to that, we were able to complete all of the preparations sooner than planned. When it became 6 p.m., we were waiting for Sarah and her guests to arrive who had reserved the entire restaurant, but there wasn't a shadow of a person. Even though 30 minutes passed by, nobody was showing up, so I thought it was strange. Right at that time, my husband had arrived at the restaurant. He walked in and looked shocked that nobody had arrived yet, and when I explained the situation to him, he told me that I should call her immediately. When I looked at the reservation sheet and I called the phone number on it, "This phone number is not in service." That was the automated message I got. I had a really bad feeling about it, so I contacted my friend and asked them for Sarah's phone number. Then I finally got through. When I asked her when she was planning on coming to the restaurant, Sarah responded, "Oh, we already started the party at a different restaurant, as if I was going to step foot in a peasant's restaurant. What a joke!" And she laughed. "Are you kidding me? We've already prepared a whole tasting menu for 30 people." When I raised my voice like that, my husband overheard and sounded worried.
What's the matter? They're not coming?
He asked me. When I told my husband what had just happened, he told me to turn the phone on speakerphone. I did as he said, and Sarah's voice echoed throughout the empty restaurant. "And first of all, for a peasant like you to open up such a fancy Italian restaurant is ridiculous. Anyway, now that the tasting menu for 30 people has been canceled, you should just lose money and go bankrupt." She said that, but just as she was about to hang up, my husband chimed in.
"We're going to report you to the police for fraudulent business obstruction."
When he said that, "Police? Why?" Suddenly Sarah started to panic.
Don't you realize that what you've done is a crystal clear case of crime? If you don't show up immediately, I really am going to call the police. We even have your reservation sheet here.
When my husband said that to her, Sarah panicked even more. "Wait, but all I did was cancel the reservation, that's all. What's the big deal?" She tried to make up excuses, but my husband was having none of it.
Did you really think that that's going to pass? You need to show up immediately, otherwise the police will be called.
And he hung up on her. 30 minutes later, looking completely panicked, Sarah and her fiancé showed up at the restaurant, and then as soon as her fiancé saw my husband's face, his eyes opened wide in shock.
Mr. Richard, is that you?
My husband was also shocked.
Your fiancé? Is this?
As it turns out, Sarah's fiancé was the manager of a hair salon that was owned by the company where my husband was working. They had multiple locations around the country. My husband was an employee at the headquarters, while Sarah's fiancé was a manager of one location, and he knew that he was very much beneath Richard. When my husband explained everything that Sarah did on this day to her fiancé, he was mortified. He apologized over and over again to me and to my husband, and then I showed them the reservation sheet that Sarah had filled out, and I started reading out loud the contract that Sarah had signed. In the event that there is no previous notice and the reservation is canceled, the full amount for the reservation will be collected by the restaurant. And I have your signature here, so we will be having you pay for this entire meal. As I read it to her, Sarah started to panic even more. "You're joking, right? There's no way I can pay for 30 tasting menus at this restaurant." She was in tears, but her fiancé was having none of it.
Shut up! No matter what you say, you're going to pay this!
And he was furious. In the end, whatever Sarah wasn't able to pay up front, her fiancé fronted for her. and I was able to receive the full cost of the reservation for 30 tasting menus. After that, the fiancé realized that Sarah might have a bad effect on his work, and he said that he was going to take back the engagement ring and that the wedding was called off. I heard that they broke up right after that. He had Sarah pay back all of the money that he had helped for the initial payment. And then they fully went their separate ways. Sarah had been bragging to everybody around her that she was going to get married to a wealthy and fancy hairstylist, and not only did she lose that, she had already quit her job to become a full-time housewife, so she also lost her job and the happiness she was expecting. The fiancé also exposed to Sarah's parents the reason why their engagement was called off. The parents were furious, and apparently Sarah received a stern lecturing from them. She sent me multiple messages to apologize, and my response was, "You already paid all of the money, so I can forgive you for that incident, but don't ever show your face at my restaurant ever again." And then I blocked her, according to the rumors that I heard. Because Sarah's engagement was called off, her parents forced her into an arranged marriage. She ended up having to marry a man 20 years older than her that she didn't like at all. On the other hand, as for me, my restaurant took off, and both my personal life and professional life were smooth sailing. Next time we have a high school reunion, I can't wait to show Sarah just how happy I am.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.